On New Year's Eve, I was diagnosed with cancer and kicked out of my parents' home. Sobbing by the roadside, an elderly scavenger approached and handed me his largest bill, a 5-yuan note. I refused it, so he bought me cotton candy instead, wishing me a happy New Year's Eve. I still declined, and he smiled warmly, saying, "I wrapped the stick with a tissue. It's clean." That day, I tasted the sweetest cotton candy in the world. He told me not to cry, promising to bite me more the next night, then turned back to scavenging. Watching the traffic flow, a flashy red sports car stood out, driven by an arrogant young man racing up and down the road. On New Year's Day, the elderly scavenger made the news, along with that red sports car. But the driver at fault was now a middle-aged man. That night, as fireworks lit up countless homes, I waited in vain for that cotton candy, staring at my cancer diagnosis in hand. It struck me that this wretched life of mine was just enough for one last wild ride. MS. Lynn, are you absolutely sure about this? The well-dressed man in front of me pointed sternly at the employment contract, his expression grave. When I didn't respond, he added, "Young Master Zhou has a wild temperament and loves extreme sports. There might be bloody scenes sometimes. Are you sure you want to apply?" I nodded and signed the contract without hesitation. Iris Lynn. Once the contract was sealed, the man stood up, shook my hand cordially, and said, "Pleasure working with you." He then personally drove me to the Zhou family villa. The moment I stepped into the front yard, a small knife flew past, grazing my neck before embedding itself in the wall. A sharp sting followed, and when I reached for my neck, my fingers met sticky blood. Seeing this, the man in the suit cast a cold glance, watching the unruly youth approaching from a distance. His posture was exceedingly respectful, yet his tone held a hint of scorn. "Young Master Zhou, this is the new playmate Mr. Zhou found for you, Iris Lynn. But Mr. Zhou asked me to relay a message. You can fool around all you want, but no more bloodshed. Otherwise, you'll never see Madam again." The moment the suited man finished speaking, the wild youth charged forward in a flash. A fist smashed into his nose bridge, while a bent right knee drove forward with a brutal, forceful kick. The man didn't dare fight back, grunting as he half knelt on the ground. "Mason Shi, you're nothing but Victor Zhou's lapdog. How dare you swagger around here throwing your weight around, using my mother to threaten me? Who the hell do you think you are?" The young man sneered, another small knife in hand, gesturing threateningly toward him. Mason Shi stood up, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Furious, yet he feigned calm as if nothing had happened. He turned to me. "This is young Master Zhou, Liu Zhou. From now on, your job is to follow him. You'll be paid daily. How long you last depends entirely on you." With that, Mason Shi gave a slight nod toward Liu Zhou, then turned and left without another word. In an instant, only Liu Zhou and I remained in the courtyard. He looked at me, I looked at him. Neither of us spoke first. Still, his face was strikingly handsome, like a rebellious youth straight out of a manga, dashing and flamboyant. He seemed born to be the protagonist, incredibly eye-catching. That's why, on New Year's Eve, amid the bustling traffic, I spotted him at a glance. He drove that flashy red convertible sports car, wearing only a thin T-shirt despite the bitter winter chill. Then, he raced back and forth on that very road. It was precisely because of this that I remembered his face and could tell the driver was just a scapegoat. Money makes the world go round. I saw it materialize so vividly for the first time. Liu Zhou was handsome and wealthy, indulging solely in extreme sports, which already piqued everyone's curiosity. Several times, during his high-speed races, he nearly lost his life. He made the news, and the internet never forgets. So I was able to learn his name and family background. Snapping back to reality, Liu Zhou now stood before me, tilting his head as he asked, "Do you know what matters most about being my playmate?" I nodded, recalling the job posting the Zhou family had released half a month ago. The Zhou family was wealthy, and the job posting to be young Master Zhou's playmate should have attracted many applicants. This was my only chance to get close to Liu Zhou, so I applied. There were 20 7 candidates in total, and I was the only girl. Mason, she doubted me from the start, saying that, as a girl, I couldn't handle the hardship. If I was hoping for some rich falls for commoner drama, that would be downright foolish. Then, he showed us videos, some extremely dangerous, horrifying, and disgusting films, along with records of all the good deeds Liu Zhou had done over the years, complete with unexpected incidents and accidental deaths that scared off every other applicant who came with me. As for me, I looked out the window at a cotton candy stall on the street. A little girl ran over, handed the vendor a 5-yuan bill, and the vendor grinned, swiftly crafting an incredibly beautiful pink cotton candy, just like the pink cotton candy that old man gave me that night. Maybe the cotton candy was too sweet, or maybe I felt my worthless life was due for one last madness, all for that sweetness. Death suddenly didn't seem frightening at all, so I applied with determination. The pay was high, but the risks were enormous. Whatever Liu Zhou did, I had to accompany him. Whether it was dangerous street racing or cliff climbing, I had to tie my life to his, becoming his most loyal playmate. So I looked at Liu Zhou and spoke calmly and firmly, not afraid to die. Being Liu Zhou's playmate required above all else a fearlessness of death. He scoffed, playing with a small knife in his hand, then glanced up at me, the last applicant. I took him free solo climbing. He went, then fell to his death. The one before that came with me into the primal forest, got eaten by a python, and then there was another. He paused, leaning slightly forward, close to my ear, and said, went street racing with me, lost control of the car, skidded in the rain, flipped into a valley. By the time they found him, he'd already started to rot. After speaking, he tried to see terror and fear in my eyes, but unfortunately, my eyes showed nothing, calm as a doll's. But only I knew that at this moment, the Liu Zhou in my eyes was nothing but a demon. I wanted to drag this demon down to hell with me, but not yet. Acting recklessly would prompt the other servants and bodyguards in the Zhou family villa to intervene. What I needed was a chance to strike with one decisive blow. Seeing no reaction from me, he clicked his tongue in annoyance. He pressed his hand against the wound again. A sharp sting made me shiver involuntarily. As if discovering a new amusement, he increased the pressure, pushing down harder. If it hurts, then get lost. Liu Zhou blinked, grinning at me with sheer mischief. Clearly, he didn't want me to stay, or perhaps he intended to intimidate me with such methods. So I reached out, covered his hand with mine, and, under his stunned gaze, pressed down firmly. Blood stained his fingers. The pain made me tremble, but I kept smiling, asking him, now, may I stay? Liu Zhou was crude, toying mercilessly with his new plaything. Me, thinking of practicing knife throwing lately. Want to balance an apple on your head? As he spoke, he tossed the apple into my hand. I nodded calmly and turned toward the designated spot. His smile widened as he squinted, took aim, and threw the knife with all his strength. I watched the blade grow larger before my eyes, hurtling toward me at incredible speed. I didn't flinch. The flying knife grazed past the top of my head and struck the apple dead center. The Zhou family servants, hidden in the shadows, couldn't hold back their gasps at the sight. I reached up, took the apple, pulled out the knife, and walked over to Liu Zhou, offering generous praise. Young Master Zhou, your aim is impeccable. He frowned, taking the knife back. My calm reaction seemed to puzzle him. Weren't you afraid I'd miss the apple and the knife would plunge into your neck instead? I shook my head and said I wasn't afraid. The first time we met, the knife he threw had already skimmed perfectly past my neck. I knew Liu Zhou was a quick learner. Having me balance an apple on my head was just his way of trying to scare me to tears. The boy's mind was twisted like a demon's, treating others' fear and panic as his personal stimulant. As if having lost interest, he casually tossed the knife. It landed straight in the fruit bowl on the table before retiring to his room, but I knew he wouldn't stop here. That night, I rested in the easternmost room on the first floor. The Zhou family villa was enormous, and I'd never slept on such a soft bed. Yet lying there, I found myself unable to sleep. My mind kept circling back to the news reports. That day, I arrived early, even spending what little pocket money I had to buy him a New Year's gift. When the whole world had abandoned me, only he bought me a pink cotton candy. I thought, before my life completely ended, I must hold on to this memory, preserve his kindness. But I waited until deep into the night, and he never showed. I stood at the entrance of the convenience store, watching the news report playing on the wall, mounted TV. In the early hours of New Year's Day, a severe traffic accident had occurred on Northgate Road. The victim was an elderly scavenger, run over by a red sports car, his blood pooling across the ground. Beside him, aside from scattered empty plastic bottles, there was a plastic bag. Inside the bag were crumpled small bills, all the possessions the old man had. Among them lay a red envelope. It was filled with numerous small notes, adding up to 100 yuan, along with a handwritten note. It read, "I exchanged all the coins for clean bills and asked someone to put them in the red envelope for you. They're not dirty at all. Little girl, Happy New Year. Stay joyful." At this point, the camera zoomed in on the note. The narrator's voice choked up, and I felt tears welling too. The news reported that the driver, intoxicated and speeding, accidentally struck the elderly scavenger by the roadside, killing him instantly. The vehicle involved was a flashy red sports car, whose license plate number I happen to remember. As for the driver, he turned himself involuntarily. Even with his face pixelated, I could still tell he was a middle-aged man, but the accident occurred not long after I had left. So, money makes the world go round, and the real murderer is still at large. My head suddenly ached terribly. I tossed and turned in bed, wrapped in blankets. Brain cancer is truly agonizing and incurable. That's why my parents didn't want me and told me to get lost. Diagnosed on New Year's Eve, they thought I was bad luck, refused to pay for my treatment, and cut ties with me. I begged them through tears, but it was useless. Amid the glow of countless household lights and the sounds of laughter all around, I couldn't find my way home. Only that old man gave me one last glimmer of hope to live. I'm just a worthless life, but going all out one last time for him before I die feels worth it. The headache kept me from sleeping, so I simply sat up. But to my surprise, as I rose, I immediately spotted Leo Zhou standing by the head of the bed. He was startled by my movement, and so was I. "Did you notice me?" He blinked, unable to resist asking. Leo held a red garment in his hand, not yet worn, and now looking awkward. He crumpled it into a ball and tossed it to the floor. I didn't speak, just threw off the covers and stood up, bending to pick up that piece of clothing. Then I asked him, "Do you want me to play a horror game with you?" Probably in his eyes. Girls are fragile and timid. Seeing a red shadow late at night should make them cry in fear. He wanted to see me scared, but unfortunately, ever since my younger brother was born, I no longer had a room at home. My parents drove me to the storage room, where I couldn't even lie flat. I had to curl up and lean against the corner. There was no light in the storage room, no matter how desperately I begged. My parents just said that, since I was a girl, there was no need to spend money on me. Even the cost of a light was a waste. There were many nights when I couldn't sleep. I was also very afraid, terrified that something horrifying might appear in the pitch black darkness. Because of this, I cried through many nights. Cried until I choked. Cried until I vomited. But later, I gradually realized that nothing could be more terrifying than the human heart. Suddenly, I wasn't afraid at all anymore. If that elusive thing could take me away, I might even be happy about it. Seeing me say this so calmly, Liu Zhou grew annoyed, snatched the clothes from me, and gave me a shove. "What are you playing at? Mocking me on purpose?" The push wasn't hard. I should have been able to keep my balance, but a sudden, splitting headache made me dizzy, and I stumbled backward, hitting my head against the foot of the bed. By the time my senses returned, my forehead was already cut open. Blood streamed down from my forehead in several streaks, tracing a ghastly pattern across my face. Tonight was stormy with thunder and lightning. A flash of lightning streaked across the sky. I slowly lifted my head to look at him, and Liu Zhou's eyes narrowed as if startled. He grew even angrier, grabbed my wrist, dragged me to the living room, found the first aid kit and began cleaning the wound. I wanted to scare you, but I didn't mean to hurt you just now, he explained stiffly, his hands rough and ungentle, and the pain was intense, but it was still bearable. He stopped what he was doing, tilted his head, and looked at me curiously. You've been hurt several times, yet I haven't heard you cry out in pain once. I rolled up my long sleeve, revealing various scars on my arm. These injuries are far worse than what you've done. Liu Zhou looked at the scars on my arm, his eyes filled with shock. How did this happen? My parents did it. Here, there are scars from when Mom was upset and jabbed me with her knitting needles. And here, scars from when Dad came home drunk and smashed empty beer bottles against me. And my younger brother, growing up spoiled and indulged by our parents, he picked up too many bad habits. He'd press cigarette butts into my arm, then turn around and tell our parents that I was the one misbehaving. Right after, I'd get beaten by the whole family, whether with sticks or whips. They'd all come down on me. At his words, his hand stilled, and his gaze toward me grew increasingly complex. After a long pause, he finally spoke. Your parents weren't good to you either? The word either carried profound implications, so I told him, do you know what my name is? He froze, seeming to search his memory intensely before shaking his head. I didn't remember. I pointed at myself. My name is Iris Lynn, Iris as in the flower. He gave an acknowledging, oh, and said it sounded quite nice. I shook my head and explained, where I'm from, the iris symbolizes a short life. I was born at night, and my parents named me Iris Lynn, hoping I'd be like the flower, not surviving till morning. Liu Zhou was stunned for a long moment, his eyes swirling with complex emotions, all traces of his earlier casualness gone. He asked me, why? I pointed at myself, then at him, because I'm a girl. Understand now. Sons over daughters. Every bite I ate at home, they said I'd have to repay someday. Then why aren't they making you repay it now? Facing his question, I joked, because I'm about to die. They once considered selling me or sucking me dry, but fate had other plans. Just as I began to earn money, a bolt from the blue struck. A cancer diagnosis landed in my hands. They feared I'd ask them for treatment money, so they preemptively kicked me out and severed ties. He withdrew his gaze, likely misinterpreting my words, and curled his lips into a cold smirk. I'm not the pervert you think I am. If you obey me, I won't harm you. But if you help Victor Zhou and tell him everything about me, I can't guarantee your safety. The father and son of the Zhou family were locked in extreme tension, akin to sworn enemies. Liu Zhou held a fatal secret over Victor Zhou. Yet, Liu had someone dear held hostage by Victor. For that person's sake, he could only endure. Thus, a bizarre balance formed between them. Even as father and son, they constantly kept watch over each other. Just like me, on the surface, I'm Liu Zhou's playmate. But secretly, I signed another contract to constantly monitor him and help Victor Zhou find that damning document that would ruin him for life. Liu knew this too, so he would deliberately tease and intimidate me. And now, by saying this, he was warning me to recognize which side I'm on and make a choice. But just as I was about to speak, the front door suddenly swung open, and Victor Zhou walked in. They talked for a long time in the study. I went to the kitchen to cut some fruit, arranged it on a plate, carried it upstairs, and approached the study door. Their arguing was far too loud. Even standing at the staircase, I could faintly hear what they were saying. Victor Zhou said, "How did I end up with such a useless son? You're nothing but trouble every single day, and now you've even gotten someone killed. If I hadn't cleaned up your mess, you'd be rotting in jail right now." Leo shot back without backing down. "Don't act so innocent. If you hadn't sent people to tail me, I wouldn't have kept circling that road, and the accident would never have happened." Victor Zhou flew into a rage, followed by the sound of shattering porcelain. "If you weren't my own flesh and blood, I'd fucking kill you. Then do it. Show me you have the guts to kill me." So, this was the truth all along. Then, the murderer. Besides Liu Zhou, there should be another one. Victor Zhou. I slowly lower my head, looking at the fruit platter in my hands. Beside the platter, I had placed a fruit knife, razor, sharp. As I pushed the door open, I saw Leo being slapped across the face. His head was forced to the side, as the man before him glared furiously, jabbing a finger at his head while hurling merciless insults. If I had another son, I would have killed you long ago. Leo let out a cold laugh, touched his cheek, then turned and walked straight out. When he saw me, his steps faltered slightly, but he said nothing, only brushed past me, bumping into my shoulder. The fruit and the knife on the platter clattered to the floor. Leo didn't stop, striding purposefully away. I should have immediately chased after him, but recalling the words I just overheard, I decisively crouched down and began leisurely gathering the scattered fruit. Footsteps gradually faded away as Victor Joe spat again, kicking the nearest apple flying. I went to pick it up, only standing after everything was collected. By now, the anger on Victor Joe's face had somewhat subsided, his gaze settling on me with a hint of appraisal. I stood motionless, eyes lowered, yet I could still feel the gaze on my face, carrying a probing, ill-intentioned edge. Victor Joe took a few steps toward me and asked, "You're the new one?" I nodded, feigning a bit of trepidation as I explained my sudden appearance. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just came to deliver the fruit. He chuckled softly, moving even closer, then reached out to touch the now soiled fruit. "No matter. It's my rebellious son who lacks manners." As he spoke, his hand on the fruit gradually slid downward until his fingers touched the back of my hand, carrying a strong implication. I looked up at him, and he was smiling at me. "You must have just graduated from university, right? So young and full of vitality. Even I find you appealing." While talking, his gaze slid down from my face and then drifted back up. "Do a good job, get me what I want, and I guarantee you'll never have to worry about food or clothing for the rest of your life. How about it?" As he said this, his hand grew restless, attempting to touch my face. I immediately feigned panic, stepping back 2 paces in thought. He missed his touch, but wasn't angered. Instead, he seemed to savor the moment, bringing his fingers to his nose for a sniff. "Young master, Joe went out alone so late at night. I should go check on him." With that, I hurried outside, but by the time I stepped through the door, the earlier alarm and fear had completely vanished. Just from this initial test, I could already get a sense of Victor Joe's character. Quite repulsive. I vigorously wiped my hands and cheeks with a tissue, then hurried to the garage. By the time I arrived, Leo Joe was already in the car with the headlights blazing. I knocked on the window, but he ignored me. I quickly ran forward and stopped dozens of meters in front of the car, spreading my arms wide as I stared at him. He rolled down the window and yelled at me, "Your boss is here. Why aren't you back at the villa serving him properly? I'm leaving now, so get the hell out of my way." After saying that, he rolled up the window, started the engine, and stepped on the accelerator, driving straight toward me. I watched the car speeding closer and didn't move an inch. Under Leo's furious gaze, I held my position, watching as the car rushing toward me screeched to a halt just inches away. He braked so abruptly that his whole body jerked forward before slamming back into the seat. "Iris Lynn, are you fucking insane?" Leo flung the car door open, stormed out, and grabbed my wrist, roaring as he shoved me into the passenger seat. I obediently sat down and didn't forget to fasten my seatbelt. He seemed both annoyed and amused by my action. He slammed the passenger seat backrest forcefully, then reached out to grip my neck, saying fiercely, "Iris Lynn, do you really think I wouldn't dare to crash and kill you?" I looked directly into his eyes and slowly shook my head. "No, you would dare. You would dare to crash and kill me, just like you did with that elderly scavenger, without any guilt." Of course, I didn't say this out loud, and Leo Joe released his grip, fastened his seatbelt, then slammed on the accelerator, sending the car shooting forward like an arrow. He drove extremely fast, recklessly weaving as if he had no regard for his life. Fortunately, it was the early hours of the morning. Plus, the villa area was somewhat remote, so for a long while, we didn't encounter any other vehicles, and his anger gradually began to subside, but the speed remained high, and I stayed silent, just sitting in the car like that for over half an hour. "Iris Lynn, seeing me in such a pathetic state, do you find it laughable?" Leo Zhou suddenly spoke, his voice icy cold. I shook my head. I don't feel anything. Just one slap, hardly satisfying at all. What's there to laugh about? I've got a high threshold for humor. Hearing this, Leo seemed angered again. He slammed the accelerator, and with a sudden jolt, I was thrown back against the seat. We were now in a busy area, far exceeding the speed limit. Visibility is poor at night. Slow down. At my words, Leo hit the brakes sharply, as if deliberately defying me. When you applied for this job, you should have known working with me could cost you your life. Since you dared sign that contract, don't bother telling me to slow down now. I stared out the window. This stretch of road was all too familiar, and I could barely contain my rising emotions. Leo, I'm not afraid to die, but you're too worked up, driving way too fast. I just don't want any accidents. I'll die with you if I have to, but I won't let innocent people die because of you. By the end, I was nearly shouting. After hearing my words, Zhou seemed to recall something, his expression turning ugly for a moment before he slammed on the brakes. The car stopped by the roadside. After unbuckling his seatbelt, he immediately strode toward the riverbank. I quickly followed after him. See me follow. Zhou grabbed my arm and shoved me against the nearby guardrail. Iris Lin, stop pretending to care about me here. It makes me sick. To be honest, it makes me sick too. So I stared straight at him. If you have any grievances, go back and fight Victor Zhou. Then I might actually respect you as a man. But instead of fighting back after being hit, you take your anger out on me. Fine, I'm paid to do this job. I should expect both blows and insults. But grow up. Don't go street racing every time you're angry. Everyone on the road has a family waiting for them. A happy family. Before I could finish, Zhou suddenly reached out and gripped my throat, as if I'd struck a nerve. His face twisted with fury. Iris Lin, what do you mean by a happy family? Are you blaming me for ruining others? Then, what kind of good person are you? If it weren't for money, why would you even come to my house? Tell me, how much do you want? Is $1 million enough? 10 million enough? Say it, struggling to breathe. I slapped his hand hard and finally broke free. Just as I was about to say something, my usually reckless brother suddenly rushed over, grabbed my wrist, palm up, and shouted urgently at me, Iris, give me money now. I looked at Zane Lin before me, this brother connected by blood, whom I've always despised. In the past, for the sake of that pitiful familial bond, I couldn't be the strong female lead, always enduring what I could, clinging to the hope that there must be some affection left in this family. It wasn't until New Year's Eve that I completely lost hope. So when I looked at Zane Lin again, instead of staying silent as before, I pushed him away forcefully. No money, get lost. Those 4 concise words seemed to infuriate Zane Lin. He glared at me viciously, just like countless times at home, raising his fist as if to strike me. I couldn't fight him. He weighed 180 pounds and had been a street thug since childhood, too skilled at throwing punches. However, this time his fist didn't land on me, because I was quicker, darting behind Zhou to use him as my shield. Children raised in wealthy families are prime targets for kidnappers, so most learn self-defense techniques from a young age. And Zhou, always fond of extreme sports, naturally had great stamina and impressive combat skills. Just as I expected, when the punch came at Zhou, he didn't dodge at all. Instead, he found an outlet for his frustration, swinging his fist right back at Zane Lin. As he threw punches, he glanced back and said to me, your little brother's a bit of a beast. Huh, yeah, just about on par with you. After silently saying this in his heart, Zhou threw several dozen punches in succession. My parents rushed over from a distance, crying as they ran, reaching out to push Leo away. My mother grabbed my collar. You wretched girl, how could you just stand there and watch your brother get beaten without protecting him? Zane Lin held his head in his hands, glaring at me with pure hatred. Mom, don't waste your breath on her. She's in cahoots with this man. They're trying to beat your son to death. The moment he said this, my mother flew into a rage. She raised her hand to slap me, though I couldn't overpower Zane Lin. Stopping the slap was something I could manage. I pushed her back and she landed on the ground with a thud. Seeing the passers-by, she immediately burst into tears. What sin have I committed? I worked so hard to raise my daughter, and now she not only runs off with some rogue, but even hits me. Oh, what a curse. Her cries were loud, drawing many stares, forcing Liu Zhou to stop. Your family is like this? He looked at me, seeming hesitant to speak, then finally shook his fist again. The movement was so abrupt that the car keys fell from his pocket. Zane Lin knew cars. His eyes lit up instantly, forgetting his own bruised and swollen face. He pointed at me excitedly. Iris, you've got some skills. You actually landed a rich catch. That sentence seemed to trigger something. My mother immediately scrambled to her feet. She rubbed her hands together, her eyes scanning Liu Zhou up and down, gleaming brighter the longer she looked, before she edged even closer. You like my daughter? Want to marry her? Or just have some fun? Hearing my mother's words, Liu froze, momentarily lost. What do you mean? My mother's smile widened, palm turned upward. If you want to marry her, you'll need to show some sincerity. I'm not asking for 3 or 5 million, but at least provide an apartment for my son to get married. And this car, my son really likes it too, as his future brother. In law, prepare the house and car, and also find my son a job. Then I'll agree to your marriage. If you're just looking to have some fun, we as parents won't let you lose out either. You seem quite wealthy, and my daughter is pure. She's never even held hands with a man, still a virgin. For the first time, you should give me at least 100,000 yuan. After that, we can charge per session 10,000 each time. How does that sound? The bystanders who originally wanted to speak up for them grew furious upon hearing these words. Liu Zhou, too, widened his eyes in disbelief and exclaimed, What do you mean by this? Selling your daughter? Only I felt truly unmoved, without a hint of emotion. Not everyone is lucky enough to have parents who love them. In their eyes, being able to sell me off is already proof of my worth. Pathetic, isn't it? I looked at Liu Zhou, my voice calm. You asked me if I came to you just for money. I can tell you now, I do need money. I want to break free from this kind of family and live my own life. But I never intended to betray you, and I won't work for your father. I need money, but not a fortune. A job that can support myself is enough. Hearing my words, Liu fell silent, but my parents and Zane Lin kept chattering on. It seemed they were worried Liu might find the price too high. In their haggling, they didn't treat me like a person at all, more like an object, negotiating my final price. I tried to leave, but Zane grabbed my arm, who said you could go. Since you're my sister, you have to find a way to get me a house and a car. Understand? My mother nodded in agreement. What are you pretending to be so high and mighty for? You silly girl? If you can fetch that much for one night, you should be thanking your lucky stars. You know, your brother is the man of this family. As his sister, even if you have to sell yourself, you'd better provide for him while you're still useful. Be sensible. Got it? Liu couldn't bear to listen any longer. He shoved Zane Lin aside and prepared to take me away. Zane was a scoundrel, unscrupulous since childhood, never giving up until he got what he wanted. His face instantly darkened. Spotting a stick by the roadside, he grabbed it and swung it at Leo's head. I saw it happen and pushed Liu aside with all my strength. The stick struck my back, and the pain was unbearable. Liu reacted instantly, turning around and punching Zane square in the face. He quickly pulled out his phone, called someone, and soon multiple cars pulled over. The once defiant Zane now shrank like a quail's egg, not daring to utter a word. As for my parents, probably thinking their seniority gave them authority, they stood with hands on hips, cursing me as an unfilial daughter who deserved to die. Leo's expression turned grim as he dragged me straight into the car. How do you plan to deal with them? Having nearly harmed Liu, the Zhou family would never let this slide. What, are you going to plead for them? Liu Zhou wore a grim expression, seemingly waiting for me to speak, his face suggesting that if I nodded, he might just throw a punch. I forced a smile and said, if possible, please don't let them off, okay? He froze for a moment, then nodded. You took that hit for me. Consider it payback. I won't let them get away with it. After saying that, he prepared to drive me to the hospital. That blow from the rod left my entire back in excruciating pain, but I couldn't go to the hospital. I couldn't let Leo Zhou find out I had brain cancer. Seeing my firm refusal, he eventually agreed and turned the car back toward the villa. After I returned to my room, he came in with a first aid kit, saying he wanted to apply medicine for me. Don't worry, I'm not interested in you, but I always repay favors. Just applying some medicine, that's all. I nodded, not feeling particularly embarrassed. After all, I'm practically already dead. As for this body, I'm not that attached to it anymore. Taking off my clothes, I turned my back to Liu Zhou. He gasped softly at first, then gently touched the scars on my back with his hand. How did you get so many scars? I stared at the closed door, recalling those terrible memories from the past. Probably, no one would believe that there could be such monstrous parents in this world who would force their daughter into prostitution just to make their son happy, all to get money for buying him the latest smartphone. The scars on my back were left by them using a thorny whip because I refused to obey, even if it meant death. Leo, I need a job, and I need shelter. That's my only purpose. Hearing my words, he fell silent. The cool ointment spread on my back made me shiver involuntarily. After a long while, I finally heard him speak. Helping you isn't because I believe you. It's just that I despise parents in this world who don't love their children. So, I'll trust you this once. After this incident, Leo's attitude toward me improved significantly, although he still had his moments of madness from time to time. But compared to our first meeting, when he held a blade to my neck, looking like he wanted me dead, things have improved a lot. In the study, he was playing video games. I sat beside him, taking paper and pen to doodle and pass the time. Suddenly, he received a phone call. Before getting up to leave, he pointed at his computer. Please shut it down for me. I nodded, watched him leave, then went to turn off the computer. But the moment I touched the mouse, the screen automatically switched, revealing several surveillance clips, all evidence of Victor Zhou's crimes. This man would stop at nothing for his business empire. He had blood on his hands, so, to advance his projects, he often quietly eliminated people. These recordings captured his face clearly. If handed to the police, they would absolutely bury him. Not only that, but there was also a folder nearby, likely containing the evidence Leo used to threaten Victor Zhou. All these files are stored on a USB drive, which is plugged into the computer. As I stared at the USB drive, pondering what to do next, I faintly heard footsteps and Victor Zhou's voice. I quickly reached out, pulled the USB drive out, and without a second thought stuffed it into my pocket. Just as I finished, Victor Zhou strode in, his eyes scanning the study before landing on me. Where's that rebellious son of mine? Young Master Zhou just took a phone call and stepped out. I shut down the computer and made to leave, but as I passed by him, Victor Zhou grabbed my wrist. Did you find it? As he spoke, he leaned closer, deliberately blowing a breath toward me, suppressing my disgust. I shook my head at him. No, he's very cautious. Victor Zhou hummed, then reached out to pinch a strand of my hair, a teasing glint in his eyes. Did you really not find it? Or do you just not want to give it to me? Iris Lin, think carefully. Though my son is young, he lacks experience. In this household, I'm the one in charge. If you can obediently get the documents, I'll let you be the new lady of this house. How about that? I looked at him, but before I could speak, Liu Zhou walked straight in. He pulled me over, shielded me behind him, then looked at Victor Zhou and let out a cold laugh. At your age, all you have is dirty tricks. You're just thinking with your dick. You unfilial son, who gave you permission to speak to your father like that? Victor Zhou was furious and tried to hit him again, but this time Leo didn't let him. He seized his wrist first, his gaze icy. If you provoke me again, you can try and see if those documents and videos end up at the police station. If I go down, do you think you'll still get to play the rich young master? Victor Zhou refused to back down, while Leo looked at him sideways with utter disdain. I don't even care about my own life. Do you think I care about being some rich young master? In the end, Victor Zhou cursed him as an unfilial son once more before turning to leave. Once again, Only Leo and I were left in the study. Through the window, I could see Victor Joe had already left the front yard. So I directly pulled the USB drive from my pocket and threw at him without a second thought. Something this important, even if you're testing me, you didn't need to bring it all out. If I'd really chosen your dad, you have no bargaining chips left. He caught the USB drive, his smile deepening with a roguish charm. Leaning his hands on the desk, he lifted his gaze to meet mine. My dad's so old already. As long as you're not blind, you know who to pick, right? I smiled back, leaning closer until my right hand brushed his cheek. I watched his initially casual smile grow hurried, flustered, almost lost. Yeah, a younger brother like you, irresistible. I grinned at him. He froze for a second, then swatted my hand away and hurried off in a panic. As he left, he muttered, just so, you know, I'm not interested in women like you. For the next few days, Leo Joe barely paid me any attention. I didn't really mind. If he ignored me, I'd just curl up alone in my room. My headaches have been getting more frequent lately, so I made time to visit the hospital. The doctor said my condition is already very serious. And even if I start chemotherapy immediately, the time I have left isn't much. I didn't check into the hospital, just got some painkillers from the doctor, then calculated my dwindling days to plan my next steps. That day, the pain had me tossing and turning in bed. Leo Joe suddenly walked in. I forced myself to sit up despite the pain, and he waved at me. Come out with me. I'll take you to meet someone. I said okay. Before leaving, I took a few more painkillers to suppress the excruciating headache. We drove for over an hour before stopping in front of a villa. The villa was built halfway up the mountain, with many guards stationed at the entrance. As Leo Joe led me inside, their eyes stayed fixed on us, as if on high alert. Stepping into the villa, the first thing that caught my eye was an incredibly beautiful garden. A woman stood in the garden. She was beautiful, like a flower fairy, gazing at the blossoms before her with an aura of tranquility and elegance. And the once arrogant Leo Joe became utterly cautious the moment he laid eyes on that woman. He didn't dare get too close. Maintaining a distance of about 10 steps from her, he spoke softly. Mom, I came to see you. The woman looked up, her eyes filled with sheer disgust as they landed on Leo's face. She only glanced at him for a moment. Then, her gaze shifted to my face. As if curious, I took a few steps toward her, seeing no resistance. I smiled and said, Hello, my name is Iris Lynn. Hearing my introduction, her expression instantly changed. She rushed over immediately, grabbed my hand, and pulled me toward the other end of the garden. Leo tried to follow, but the woman grew agitated and roared, You stay there. Don't come any closer. Leo's face wore a deeply pained expression, but he still halted in his tracks, gazing at the woman with desperate longing, his eyes full of desolation. As for me, I was pulled into a corner by this woman. She stared intently at me, and after a long while, she finally spoke. Why did you have to come? I was taken aback, not quite understanding what she meant by that. She let out a bitter laugh, her hands gripping my shoulders tightly, wanting to scream but restraining her voice as she spoke. Iris Lynn, is love really that important? Is love more important than human life? Hearing this, my heart sank. She wiped away her tears, her whole spirit seeming drained, her eyes filled with despair. I really hate this world. Hate Victor Joe. Hate Leo Joe. I still didn't speak, even though I could vaguely guess something, but to be absolutely safe, I couldn't reveal anything prematurely. Seeing the caution in my eyes, she shook her head again. Even though that old man only gave you a cotton candy, even though a cotton candy might seem insignificant to you, you'd choose love over cotton candy. But if that person were worth it, I wouldn't be this heartbroken. Yet, Iris Lynn, do you truly desire a murderer's love so desperately? Her words were too blunt, so blunt that it left me somewhat stunned. At this moment, seeing the sorrow in this woman's eyes, I couldn't help but want to ask, what exactly do you know? She laughed, then raised her hand and slapped herself hard across the face. I'm so foolish. I knew the whole story. Knew Victor Joe was just a playboy who would stop at nothing for his business empire, harming many in the future. Yet I always believed my arrival could change everything. He even promised me, but in the end, she smiled bitterly, then looked at me again, her eyes filled with helpless sorrow. I've already made a mistake, and I don't want you to compound it. Liu Zhou might be flawless in his feelings for you in the future, but deep down, he's as cold-blooded as his father. His hands are stained with innocent blood. Are you really going to forget this hatred for the sake of love? She had said all this, and though I didn't know why, I understood clearly that she knew every thought in my mind, except for that future possibility she mentioned. I won't fall for Liu Zhou. I want no part of such a twisted love. But before I could say anything, she suddenly burst into loud laughter, turned and walked back on her own, shoving Leo aside forcefully when she passed him, then wandered aimlessly through the garden alone. I turned and walked over to Liu Zhou. His eyes were already red, rimmed, brimming with unconcealed disappointment. Iris Lin, why do you think there are mothers in this world who hate their own children? His voice was desolate, his gaze fixed wistfully in his mother's direction, until finally a tear traced down from the corner of his eye. Let's go home. I reached out and gently patted his back, then walked out of the villa with him. As we were about to leave, the woman lifted her skirt and chased after us, but was stopped at the door by that group of people. She shouted at me, Iris Lin, don't become the next me. Don't become the next me. Others might not understand what these words meant, but I did. After getting into the car, Liu Zhou didn't start it immediately. Instead, he gazed toward the villa and told me a story. In the story, a little boy was born into a very happy family. From his earliest memories, his parents were deeply in love, and he enjoyed a privileged upbringing, the happiest person in the world. But later, that happiness suddenly vanished. His father was a workaholic, obsessed with building his own business empire. At first, he managed to hold onto his principles, but later, for the sake of projects, he secretly did many terrible things behind his mother's back. His mother was furious, and the two of them argued countless times. His father's secretary seized the opportunity to step in. On Mom's birthday, Dad and his secretary were entangled in my room at home while Mom sat crying at the door. After her tears dried up, she said she wanted to leave. The little boy said he wanted to leave with Mom. Mom just looked at him, the mother who had always been gentlest with him. But at that moment, she pushed him away, and she told him, if you can't change, you'll become a demon too. Back then, he was too young to understand what those words meant. He only knew that Mom didn't want him anymore. But when Dad found out, he sent many people to capture Mom and locked her in a villa, forbidding her to leave. Dad still deeply loved Mom. Furious about her attempt to leave, he began indulging in wild parties and affairs outside. Having always been a playboy, he now accepted any and all advances without hesitation. As for Mom, she remained confined in the private villa. For him to leave was simple. He just had to find Dad, admit he was wrong, and he could walk free. But she refused, preferring to drive herself mad rather than ever see that father and son again, even if he was a piece of her own flesh. The way she looked at this child was as if he were an enemy, filled with utter disgust. Later, the child grew up. He went to ask his mother how he could earn her forgiveness. She told him that if he found all the evidence of his father's crimes and handed it over to the police, she would forgive him. The child really went searching, surviving countless dangers, and finally found that evidence. But when his father found out, he used the mother to threaten him, saying that if he dared hand it over to the police, he would make sure the child never saw his mother again. For his mother's sake, he didn't turn it in, and when she found out, she refused to see him ever again. As he spoke, Liu Zhou suddenly lowered his head, tears falling onto the back of my hand. His voice choked with emotion. Why? Iris Lin, what exactly did I do wrong? Why doesn't she want to see me? Am I not her son? Why does she always say I'll turn bad someday? Why would a mother call her own child a demon? I looked at him. If he were a complete stranger, I might have felt a pang of sympathy and given him a comforting hug. But the problem is, I know him, so I can't empathize with his plight. Liu Zhou is a demon, cold-blooded to the core, just like his father. Even after causing someone's death, he could calmly let someone else take the blame and continue living his carefree life without a shred of guilt or remorse. In all the time I've been by his side, he's lived happily every day, never once thinking of the elderly person who died because of him. That's why I truly can't empathize. Seeing my silence, Liu Zhou slowly raised his head, a bitter smile tugging at his lips. I thought, at a time like this, you'd at least pretend to comfort me. I could do that, but do you really need it? Faced with my retort, he shook his head, wiped away his tears, steadied his emotions, and then drove home. On the way back, he rambled on about his mother's story. That very beautiful woman was named Sophia Liu. After falling in love at first sight with Victor Zhou, she didn't intend to be with him, as if she had many reservations. It wasn't until Victor Zhou pursued her relentlessly, even swearing repeatedly, vowing never to betray or let her down in this lifetime, and promising never to cross any moral boundaries, that Sophia Liu finally agreed to be with him. Years of happiness ultimately couldn't withstand Victor Zhou's ambition, and what was once a good family eventually fell apart. As for Sophia Liu, her mental state has worsened over the years. She often rambles nonsensically, claiming she transmigrated into a book and wanted to change the tragic fate of the original story. Yet, in the end, she still became a player trapped in the game. Hearing this, my heart sank. While others might think she's delusional, to me, she had precisely guessed everything I intended to do. Perhaps this truly is a world within a book, and the father and son of the Zhou family are precisely those villainous male leads, thoroughly wicked, yet still adored by countless fans. Unfortunately, I'm likely not the female lead, nor do I fancy such men. I only like that cotton candy, the one, pink, sweet cotton candy. After this incident, our relationship grew much closer. Perhaps it was because he had revealed his most vulnerable side to me. Liu Zhou no longer guarded himself around me as he once did. Sometimes he would even smile at me, like any normal young man would. But I knew it was all an illusion. He had once run over and killed someone, and when I deliberately brought it up, he clearly froze. But that was all. There wasn't a trace of guilt or remorse in his eyes. He even smiled at me and said talking about the dead was bad luck. We should focus on happier things. Someone like this, how could he possibly be worth redeeming? So my resolve never wavered, not even for a moment. Over the weekend, he asked me to go mountain climbing with him. Accompanying him were his friends, a few other wealthy young masters who idled their days away, chatting and laughing about cars and women. When they saw me following behind him, they didn't even bother to hide their lewd remarks. One of them walked right up to me. Even though I was wearing long pants that covered all my skin, I could still see desire in his eyes, a disgustingly blatant desire. He took out his phone, smiled at me, and said, "Want to be my girlfriend? You can pick any car or house you want. How about it?" Before I could say anything, Liu Zhou walked over, slapped his phone away, his gaze icy cold. "I invited you all out to hike, not to indulge in filthy thoughts. If that's what's on your mind, get the hell out of here." The man was still laughing. "Come on, Liu, it's just a woman. If you're interested, we can pick any girl from the university campus. If they refuse, no problem. I've got plenty of drugs to make them obedient. How about it?" Liu Zhou shot him a glance. "I'm not interested. If you want to play, go do it yourselves." After saying that, he took my hand and started leading me back. "Aren't we hiking anymore?" Hearing my words, he immediately halted and still glared at me irritably. "What, do you actually want to be his girlfriend?" From his tone and the expression on his face, I could vaguely guess something. I don't think Liu Zhou loves me deeply, but there should be a little bit of fondness. And that little bit is already enough for me. So I smiled, took his hand, and intertwined our fingers as he stared in shock. I told him, "I only want to be one person's girlfriend. Guess who that is?" He didn't speak, but the tips of his ears turned red. I could be sure that Liu Zhou must like me a little. If Li Shuhua's words were true, then according to the plot, I came to him for revenge, but would fall for Liu Zhou, become painfully entangled with him, forget my original purpose, forget why I came, and lose myself in pointless emotional drama. In the end, we might end up together, but Liu Zhou would still be the same Liu Zhou who treats human lives as trivial. But I won't let such a plot unfold, and my illness has been worsening, leaving me with little time left. So when Victor Zhou came again, I had already made all preparations in advance. Before Victor Zhou arrived, he had already obtained my contact information through Mason Shi, so I knew he would come today. And before his arrival, I deliberately sent Liu Zhou away to buy something for me. I even calculated the timing, sending a message to Liu Zhou the moment I saw Victor Zhou enter through the study window. Then, Victor Zhou came upstairs and entered the study. His eyes immediately fell upon me, sitting quietly and reading a book. He walked over, his gaze lingering on me with a hint of intensity. Today, I wore a white dress, recalling Lin Shuhua's style, with my hair down, likely achieving a 50% resemblance. I looked up, and Victor Zhou's gaze on my face grew even more fervent. He grabbed my wrist, pulling me into his embrace, his atoms apple-bobbing as he reached to touch my face. Iris Lin, you are truly beautiful. He tried to kiss me. I leaned back to dodge, and he only laughed more delightedly. Iris Lin, whether you find the document or not doesn't matter. As long as you're willing to stay by my side, I promise you'll live in a mansion, drive luxury cars, and I'll buy you the most expensive bags and jewelry. All you need to do is enjoy life. No worries about anything else. How does that sound? As he spoke, he tried to get handsy with me again, but my gaze remained fixed on the front courtyard. I'd already calculated the timing, so as soon as my mental countdown ended, Liu Zhou rushed into the front yard. I immediately looked back and smiled at Victor Zhou. He naturally took it as a sign of consent and grew bolder with his hands, already starting to tear my clothes. The distance from the door to the study. After all this time at the Zhou family, I'd run this test countless times. So, when the new countdown ended, I quickly reached out to push Victor Zhou away. No, don't touch me. But he thought I was playing hard to get and even tried to pin me down on the desk. I screamed, and he moved to cover my mouth. Just as Leo's figure swiftly appeared at the study door, my gaze toward him was filled with helplessness and despair. Furious, he charged forward, throwing punch after punch at Victor Zhou. Victor Zhou must have had some training too. Apart from the initial blows, where he was at a disadvantage, once he regained his footing, the two of them began wrestling fiercely. Liu, how dare you hit your own father? Victor Zhou's face darkened, and as if to provoke him on purpose, he pointed at me and said, "This woman is indeed something, but I'm your father. Whatever I take a liking to, even if you adore it, you must immediately hand it over to me." As he spoke, he reached out to touch me again. Perhaps Liu had some affection for me, and that small fondness was enough to inflict deep humiliation, fueling him with intense energy. Without a second thought, he grabbed a nearby vase and smashed it over Victor Zhou's head. "Victor Zhou, I don't care how you play around outside, but you are not to lay a finger on Iris Lin." With bloodshot eyes, Liu grabbed my wrist, pushed me toward the exit, and thrust the USB drive into my hand as he did. "Go, leave right now. This villa, in the end, still belongs to Victor Zhou. So if a fight really breaks out, we might all be captured by Victor Zhou in no time. By then, the consequences would truly be unimaginable." Seeing the USB drive, Victor Zhou's eyes instantly darkened, and he immediately reached out to grab me. Liu Zhou punched him again, then pulled me along as we ran outside, skillfully making our way to the garage and getting into that red sports car. I sat in the passenger seat, following him as we broke through the layers of bodyguards' blockade, with cars chasing closely behind us. At this hour, it was still the dead of night. The car sped along the road, and under my deliberate guidance, the time and place were gradually aligning. I watched the road drawing nearer and glanced at the USB drive in my hand, then asked him, "Liu Zhou, aren't you worried you might never see your mother again?" He smiled bitterly. In my mother's heart, if I could hand this over, she might be more willing to acknowledge me as her son. But no matter what, Victor Zhou is still my father. I've thought about bringing him down, but I don't want him dead. So, from the very beginning, I never truly intended to hand over this USB drive. I just wanted our family to go back to how we were before. Today was an accident. I'll take you somewhere out of town to lay low first. And when things calm down, I'll bring you back. As he spoke, I slipped both the phone and the USB drive into my pocket, along with the adapter I'd prepared earlier. While he glanced outside several times, I used the cushion in my arms as cover to copy all the files and videos. After that, I edited the video, set it to send on a timer, and once everything was done, I pretended nothing had happened, lowering my gaze to look out the window. They're catching up. Hearing my words, Liu Zhou stepped on the accelerator again, but this time, he had struck Victor Zhou. Victor probably thought he would really hand over the USB drive, so he actually chased after us in his own car, just like that early New Year's morning, one after the other, a frantic pursuit, but this time, it must be somewhat different. Looking at the familiar road ahead, I let out a long sigh of relief, then turned to Liu Zhou. Liu Zhou, do you remember what happened in the early hours of New Year's Day? Hearing my words, he suddenly hit the brakes, but realizing someone was chasing behind us, he quickly stepped on the accelerator again. What happened? How would I know if you don't explain clearly? Liu Zhou played dumb, his eyes showing no trace of remorse. So I made my words more direct. On New Year's Eve, an elderly scavenger was collecting bottles in the area. After midnight, a red convertible, speeding and failing to turn in time, veered onto the side path and hit the old man, killing him instantly. The driver turned himself in, and it even made the news. Are you really unaware? He didn't look at me, but nodded. I sneered, but the funny thing is, the person driving the red convertible that day was clearly a very young boy, yet the one who turned himself in was a middle-aged man. Don't you find that ridiculous? Hearing my words, Liu Zhou visibly froze, turning to me with eyes full of shock. Liu Zhou, you killed someone by speeding. Do you really feel no guilt at all? I just find it tragic. And he seemed unable to meet my gaze. No, that's not it. It was Victor Zhou that day. He sent people after me, trying to get the USB drive in my possession. I had no choice but to drive around the area over and over. That elderly person. It was an accident. Just an accident. Just an accident. I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. I stared into his eyes, but all I could see was panic directed at me. Still no trace of remorse for that old man. It's all so bitterly ironic. But it was you who hit him. You killed him. I couldn't hold back my roar. The next moment, the car suddenly revved with a low growl. Then the brakes failed. I lunged for the steering wheel and, catching him off guard, swerved us straight into the guardrail. Because of this sudden move, the car behind couldn't react in time and crashed right into us. All I felt was the world spinning violently. Every part of my body screamed in agony. When consciousness returned, I felt completely upside down. Liu Zhou, like me, had hit his head on the steering wheel. Blood smeared all over his face. He couldn't move. Aside from my hands, my legs were pinned and immobile too. I flung the USB drive out the window with all my strength. As for the car behind us, it had also overturned in the chaos. Victor Zhou couldn't move either. Perfect. The car was dripping fuel, and the commotion had drawn police and bystanders who were already calling for help. I looked at Leo, and he was looking back at me, just like our first meeting. But this time, I spoke first, telling him, coming to your side, playing along all these days. My earlier reasons were all lies. I never cared if my parents kept leeching off me, and I didn't need shelter or money. Then, what do you want? His voice choked up slightly, while my gaze drifted out the window. I just want a pink cotton candy, a really sweet cotton candy. If it weren't for Liu Zhou and Victor Zhou, I would have tasted that pink cotton candy, leaving no regrets behind. But there are no ifs in this world. My life is worthless. Whether I die a month from now or today makes no difference to me. I couldn't help but laugh in the end. I'd thought of many ways. Should I stab you the moment I saw you? But later I realized Victor Zhou is also to blame. So I couldn't use such a simple, brutal method. How he was lost is how you shall be lost. Does this road feel familiar? How desperate were you when you hit someone? Can you feel it now? How an innocent, vibrant life was forced to vanish forever amid your arguments with Victor Zhou. Liu Zhou, go to hell. You owe him an apology. As for me, I still want to taste another cotton candy. A pink, sweet cotton candy. I'd stored gasoline in the trunk earlier and deliberately left the cap loose. After such a violent collision, I thought, perhaps in another dozen seconds, there would be a loud bang, and the guilty would descend into hell. The police were all seasoned professionals. They could see the fuel dripping and knew an explosion was imminent. Fortunately, it was the early hours of the morning with almost no passing vehicles. Both sides of the road were controlled, and all pedestrians had been evacuated. I listened to Victor Zhou's roars from the car behind. Then I looked at Liu Zhou beside me. He was also looking at me, his eyes filled with complexity. As he asked me one last question, he said, "Did you ever like me?" I shook my head and told him, "No one could ever like a cold-blooded demon. I am no exception." The next moment, both cars exploded simultaneously, flames bursting into the sky, strikingly similar to the fireworks lighting up countless homes at the beginning of the year. Before being engulfed by the inferno, in a daze, I seemed to see that hobbling elderly scavenger once more. He held a pink cotton candy in his hand, the stick wrapped in a tissue, his smile goofy yet utterly sincere as he told me, "Sweetie, cotton candy. It's clean, not dirty at all. So sweet. A sweetness I'll remember for a lifetime." 13. Lin Shuhua's perspective. Victor Zhou is dead. Liu Zhou is dead too. My husband and my son, both gone. As a transmigrator, like many others, I was confident that my arrival would change the established character arcs in the book. Victor Zhou was a womanizing and ruthless man, the quintessential crime novel male lead popular in our era, driving countless girls wild. But I always felt something was off about that. When I transmigrated into the book, the timeline was too early. The male lead hadn't even been born yet. Victor Zhou, as the father of the male lead, was supposed to be an exceptionally cruel and vicious man. But then we met. He said he loved me. When he said it, his eyes were so sincere. His cheeks flushed like an innocent young boy. I don't want him to become the Victor Zhou described in the book. I thought I could change his fate. But a demon is a demon. How foolish I was to think a woman could ever compare to the business empire in his heart. I've regretted it ever since that day. And when he ended up in bed with his secretary, I decided to leave. The reason wasn't just his infidelity. It was also because of my son, Liu Zhou. As the male lead of this book, his nature is ruthless. Human lives mean nothing to him. When he grows up, he becomes even more cold-hearted than his father, with blood on his hands that only increases. If I can't even save his father, how could I possibly save this novel's male lead? I can't save him, so I wanted to leave, but I couldn't. Trapped in that villa, I ended up driving myself mad. Iris Lin, as the female lead of this book, she approached with the intent of revenge, yet laughably fell in love with Liu Zhou. Though entangled for years due to her brain cancer, how could a female lead die so easily? A miracle would appear, paving the way for their love. I thought fate was unchangeable. Only when news of their deaths arrived did I realize Iris Lin had gained her own consciousness, no longer just a puppet controlled by the plot. And the materials and videos he leaked were enough to expose how vicious Victor Zhou's actions had been over the years. Liu Zhou also had several lives on his hands, whether from hitting someone while street racing or other reasons. Those deaths were always covered up for him. But now, under Iris Lin's recordings and videos, all the darkness was exposed. Iris Lin used her life to bring these shadows to light, seeking justice for the wrongfully accused and the families of the victims. As for her family, they too received the punishment they deserved. And I finally stepped out of the villa. I visited her grave, bringing a pink cotton candy. It was very sweet. I thought she would probably like it.